The ANC held a media briefing yesterday to outline outcomes of the NEC meeting, Itala Bank developments in the Palestine and resolutions on Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal were among the discussion points. The party says that the decline suffered in the two key provinces required immediate action, as the two provinces were the most populous and economic hubs of the country and account significantly for the national vote share. The ANC national officials have been tasked with submitting a proposal on the reconfiguration of the leadership in Gauteng as well as KwaZulu-Natal to the NWC within 1 week period. Let's now bring in the national spokesperson Mahlengi Bhengu-Motsiri. On this, Mahlengi, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning. I just want to quickly go back to this point. So what led the ANC to say, let's reconfigure or let's dissolve or look into what needs to be happening in KwaZulu-Natal as well as Gauteng? Is the issue necessarily with the leadership itself that has led to the decline, or could there be other factors that are external to the leadership?
I'd imagine, good morning, Aldrin, and I'd imagine that it is the NEC looked at the report that was produced by the National Working Committee, presented by the Secretary General. And the report, of course, is a product of extensive work with the two provinces, including 2 NWC visits to those provinces, including engagements with all the regional structures of the ANC in the two provinces, as well as branches of the ANC, engagement with veterans, engagements with Alliance, all of whom have made inputs in one way or the other to what became the final document that informed the decisions that we are now talking about in the public domain. And of course, it would the best way to sum it up is to say that the stage of organization in the two provinces has been deemed both by the National Working Committee, and now it's a final decision of the NEC, as provinces that require an urgent intervention to strengthen the organization, to strengthen the political leadership and the political strategy in those two provinces, to also strengthen the leadership that is suited and capable to take the rebuilding work forward, which is where the issue of reconfiguring the leadership comes in. It's not in isolation of everything else. It forms part of a package of things that have got to be done to rebuild our structures in those two provinces. And of course, as viewers would know, those two provinces contribute significantly to the national GDP. They contribute significantly to the national vote share. You could say they are the most populous. By right, any serious-minded political organization has got to have a clear strategy for provinces such as Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal. And I must say, it's not ending with those two provinces. The resolution of last year's ANC Lekgotla directed the NEC to ensure that we pay particular attention to these two, but we must extend that to all the provinces of the ANC as part of a nationwide rebuilding and renewal exercise.
Yeah. So yesterday, the ANC SG saying that part of reconfiguration would mean a tempering with the leadership. Is it then the ANC's view that the leadership in these two provinces have been weak, and because of those weaknesses that led to the decline, amongst the other issues?
It is amongst the other issues, and I would say that the feeling is that the leadership as it stands in those two provinces require enhancements and further support, and that they alone, including after successive interventions and support by the National Executive Committee, by headquarters, it is very clear that that alone is not sufficient to give us a leadership that can take us on a restoration, on a renewal path, especially given the dire circumstances in two of these provinces. A good example is KwaZulu-Natal, where we are fighting, for example, the decimation of some of our structures as a result of people moving to the Zuma party. So we are rebuilding to reclaim what belongs to the African National Congress, and that is going to require that we have a leadership that is suited for that purpose.
Okay. Then the SG went on further to say that tampering with the provincial leadership, ANC structure, does not necessarily mean tampering with what happens at a government level. But is there any possibility at all that whatever decision is taken in terms of reconfiguration, because I can imagine, and you can just quickly confirm this, as part of reconfiguration, does it mean, as an example, that the chairpersons that we know currently may no longer be chairpersons in these provinces?
There are so many possibilities here, so many scenarios. And of course, I'll be very careful and be tentative in my comments, given the fact that there is a deadline of this 1 week. We're already in the 1 week, where national officials must present to the National Working Committee a reconfiguration plan, including leadership reconfiguration. And that, I do not want to be too speculative about it. All I can say that indeed it will tamper with the current status quo in terms of leadership, in terms of which positions and how the entire PECs are restructured. That is the detail that will follow, which we should be able to come back and communicate about.
Yeah. So is there a possibility that the reconfiguration of that particular top structure of the PEC could also mean that whoever then steps in, that those people have the powers to renegotiate the governments that they've gone into, whether it is the coalition in KwaZulu-Natal or even the minority government that the ANC has said that it wants to hold in Gauteng as it stands currently? Is that a possibility at all? Would they have such powers?
They definitely would not have such powers, given the fact that that process is tightly managed right at the center. And you can appreciate why that is the case. And secondly, it's in the interest of the ANC that there are no disruptions to service delivery to our communities. Tampering with that would simply mean we're now throwing the whole governance in KwaZulu-Natal and in Gauteng into some kind of a tailspin that may be never ending. We headed for local government elections in 2026. We need a stable provincial government. We need a stable national government. And so the ANC is considering all of that. That is why in the directive to national officials, the National Executive Committee said in this whole reconfiguration, you must not tamper with government. So there will be no possibility of renegotiating a new model of governance or components or coalitions, or if there are coalitions, the provincial government of provincial unity, where as it exists, that is not on the cards. Okay. Unless, of course, there are other circumstances that are exogenous to this discussion that emerge that forces the ANC to rethink its role in the two provinces. That's a separate matter.
Okay. Mahlengi, I just quickly want to squeeze this in. Minister Khumbudzo Ntshavheni in the presidency, NEC member as well. The Hawks, we understand, have now handed over docket to the NPA to decide whether or not there should be a prosecution. There has been this call by the EFF, the Democratic Alliance as well, that she should be removed from the ministry. What's the ANC's take on this, and what happens now for the ANC now that this matter is also in the public domain?
Well, the matter is in the public domain. Firstly, to say we await the entire legal and law enforcement process to kick in. The provisions in the constitution of the ANC are very clear in terms of Rule 25, what happens in circumstances where somebody has been preferred with the charges and has been charged and also has been with all of the processes that go with it. At what point does Rule 25, the step-aside rule, kicks in? We do not do so on the basis of, the calls that are made, because it's important that we follow our constitution to the letter. Otherwise, it's very easy for our decisions to be litigated. And I think the opposition parties playing to the gallery, they know too well that the ANC has got its own policies. And we've been dutiful to those. If you look at our track record in 2024, we had a number of step-asides on the basis of the law enforcement process and the judicial process. But you cannot just remove somebody and say step aside on the basis that there is a docket that is being looked at. That docket that has been handed over to the NPA still has to undergo processes of the NPA and the entire full set of law enforcement and judicial institutions. So we are watching this thing very closely. We do trust that there is no substance to, or that there will be a finding that places Comrade Kumbutso in a positive view in as far as the constitution of the ANC is concerned. But should there be a situation where she is found to be in conflict with the law, the ANC has got an obligation to the people of South Africa to walk the talk, and as far as ensuring that she steps aside and all of the other things that happen in terms of the ANC's integrity processes as well as disciplinary policy will then kick in.
Okay, thank you so much for your time. Mahlengi Bhengu-Motsiri is the spokesperson for the ANC following that NEC meeting.